It is with such excitement today that I interview this amazing man, this phenomenal human being who is a change maker, who is helping people to be better versions of themselves and how they show up in the world and lead. And we'll talk more about that. But it is such my honor to have Yosi Kossowsky here with me on the Power Transformation Podcast. Welcome, Yosi.
Thank you, Alethea. I am really excited to be here.
Perfect. I'm excited too. I'm excited to have you here and just to know that we literally live on different parts of the world and everything. And that is so incredible to me to have all of these global speakers and guests and everything. And I acknowledge you. And I'm so glad that we were able to get connected. A mutual friend of ours connected us, and we are part of an entrepreneurial community together. But I'm just so intrigued by just when I first met you. And I'd like to always start with some type of a lighthearted icebreaker question simply to get us started. And Yussi, my question for you is thinking about childhood all the way through your teenage years, what is one favorable or happy memory at any point in childhood that you look back on and it makes you smile?
That's a good one. Um, well, two showed up in my head, two very
Okay.
different ones. So I'm one of four boys. My dad remarried. So in the first marriage, one of four, and from the second, one of seven.
Wow.
Um, and the three brothers that were from the first marriage were very close in age. We're four of us born within 5 years, and so we were like a little bundle of if you ever seen that Charlie Brown cartoon, with Linus like always be like that's kind of how we were. So we had a lot of adventures. For a while, we lived in Florida, and we had a pool in the backyard, and we used to go diving for my mom or dad would throw something in the pool and we would go diving for it. So
Hmm.
that was one memory that showed up. And then the second memory, we most of my growing up, we lived in Denver, Colorado, and the first time I went skiing was amazing.
Wow. How old were you when you went skiing?
I was a teenager already.
Oh, yeah.
That I remember, meaning the memory that I have is when I was a teenager,
Uh-huh.
young teenager, and just that feeling of going down a hill s- at speed
Uh-huh.
was just, yeah. I mean, it was better
Yeah.
than a roller coaster. You know?
Yeah. I can imagine. I've never gone skiing, but I've heard people who have gone and they talk about the rush that you
Yeah.
get from it and just the excitement and the thrill of it. And, your life can definitely be likened to skiing with all of the rushes you've had and the slopes you've had and the excitement and just all of that in between. And we'll definitely talk about that. But I want to transition into this. That gave us a very good picture of some of those happier times in childhood and just that, joy of being amongst people that you love. And it leads me to ask this question, and you can answer it any way that you want.
Okay.
Who, yes, so this question is who is Yossi Kossowsky?
Wow. Small question. I mean, yeah, like, yeah. Wow.
Answer it
Okay.
any way that
Um,
resonates with you. It is no right or wrong.
so, uh, there, I don't remember who has a natural practice to do this. There was this question that it's like a mantra of who am I? Who am I? Who am I really? That
Mm,
I learned when I was doing spiritual retreats. They would have us just do this for hours at a time. And The idea would be you would be sitting with somebody and they would ask you, "Who are you?" And then whatever came to mind, you would answer. And it was this idea of unraveling sense of self and seeing what happens when all of these senses of self um, get named and then maybe fall away. What's left?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you ask me that question, that's really what comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and I'm going to be straight with you, which is I don't really know who I
Yes.
am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In a sense, am I the culmination of my experiences? Am I the soul that is within? Um, or am I who I feel in the moment? And I often find that I am needing to choose who I want to be versus having an immediate answer of who am I.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm not really sure that I have any strong sense of who am I.
Mm-hmm. That is powerful. And it reminds me of an interview I heard of a woman who gained a lot of notoriety here in the States named Betty Reed Soskin. And when she was 85, she became a U.S. park ranger in her older years. And she
Wow.
retired at practically 100. And there's an interview of her. She's actually still alive. I believe she's 104 now.
Wow.
And she was interviewed at 103, I think. And one of the questions they asked her, "Who are you?" And she said something so powerful. She said, "I am who people want me to be or think I am, but I don't really know who I am." And she's over 100 and is still saying, "I don't know who I am." And it's not a judgment against her or you or anyone. I think that's a courageous answer because we are ever evolving and constantly growing and shifting and shaping. And who we might have been 5 years ago may not be, and more than likely isn't, who we are now. And we find that often on leadership journeys when we're leading others, leading ourselves. And so this question is much more simple, so to speak. I'm not going to just go into the deep end with every question. But if you were to share with a person what it is that you do professionally at this point in life, what would you say that you do in terms of a job title or how you serve?
So you asked me how I would sell it to somebody else versus how I think about it myself. So,
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I, in my simplest way, would say I am an executive or leadership development coach with a focus of helping people learn how to understand their strengths and really utilize them and equally understand their derailers or their stumbling blocks and how to maneuver around them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that. I really do. And it's clear. Now you've piqued my curiosity. That's how you would explain it to others. How would you define it for yourself?
I try to be a candle in the darkness
Mm. Mm.
is what I wake up and pray that I can do every day, honestly.
Hmm. And we need more candles, that is for sure. And the fact that you are being that is absolutely tremendous. When you think about your desire or even calling, I won't call it a desire, but your assignment and your calling to be this candle in the darkness, Yossi, take us back briefly to a time in your childhood that you actually shared with me that I think is quite powerful, where you were navigating your schooling and something happened along the way where here you are now as this candle in the darkness. But take us back to a time in childhood where there were some challenges that were happening and how those challenges were not only identified, but resolved in a sense, and how they've shaped who you are today.
So I get finicky about words. And you say resolved. I'm not sure it's still resolved. And I'm happy to share the experience.
Mhm. And I am
So,
so look, I'm glad that you said that. Sometimes I'm a big wordsmith person too. There are times in audience, you may notice this from how I interview. I intentionally use certain words so that they are challenged because in my mind too, especially as a former educator and a person myself with certain diagnoses, I actually agree with you. So counter that and answer it any way that you want. Thank you for calling
thank
it
you.
out because it is purposeful.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it creates dialogue.
And it also speaks to my own personality.
Oh, it's
Um,
nothing wrong with
you
that.
know,
Yeah. Hmm.
when I was entering third grade, and so there's what's always a challenge is I'm in my 50s, and as I recall the past, it's a mixture of what I think I remember at the moment of, and what's been built up over the years about my memory of that
Hmm.
time. So what I remember in its purest sense, meaning like from the eyes of the 8-year-old, was in the summer before school, my mother started taking me to doctors, and they started doing these questions and had me, you know, draw things, and I was really confused. Like, what was this process? Like, what's happening? And I didn't get a clear answer from anybody, not from the doctors and not from my mom. And and at that point, my parents were already divorced. So luckily, it was an amicable divorce. But it
Hmm.
was really my mom who was taking me to these things, and my dad, I saw him like every other weekend or something. So when I say my mom, I'm literally my mom, not just my parents.
Hmm.
And my 8-year-old brain caught on to, I guess things that I had heard, and the understanding I got was that I was retarded.
Hmm.
And I um and I couldn't learn. I didn't know how to learn. And I didn't understand specifically what I didn't know, but I did understand that there was something wrong.
Hmm.
Um, the real impact came a little bit later when school started, and my mom told me I'm not going back to the day school that I had been in with all the kids in my neighborhood. I'm
Wow.
going to this other school,
Mm.
and it's there was no bus. My mom had to drive me every day, and so I grew up um, in an Orthodox Jewish family.
Hmm.
Um, with all of the rituals that go along with that, and I'm coming up to this new school, and it's got a huge cross on the outside, and I'm like,
Oh,
what's
wow.
going on? And
Yeah.
I don't remember if she explained it or not, but then we walk in, and there are nuns in frocks and fathers in garb, and I'm like, what is going on?
Hmm.
And it was a Catholic school. And I
Mm.
don't know if it was a school specially for children who were with learning disabilities or whatever. Um, They were very warm. They were very welcoming.
Wow.
They were not challenging to my religion. They didn't ask me to do anything that would be uncomfortable for me in that sense, like go to mass every day. Um, so they were super respectful. It was an amazing place. I only
Wow.
have the warmest memories of the 3 years or 4 years that I was there. And what I what I learned later on was that I got finished with second grade and I still didn't know how to read at all. And the day school I was in, like, didn't know what to do with me. Um, and so hence all the testing. And so the experience that I grew up with was a few things. One was that I was broken and
Mm-hmm.
retarded. The second one was that my other three brothers I mentioned to you didn't have these challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And the third is that the school I was in was essentially attended by the kids in my neighborhood. And when they noticed that I didn't come back to school, um, as kids may do, were not kind about it.
Mm-hmm.
And and so what I do remember is an incessant amount of teasing, being excluded, like on the weekends, you want to go to play with friends. There was
Yeah.
no one for me to play with.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
so, I mean, luckily my brothers are, as I said, we're all pretty close in age. And so
Mhm.
I did hang out with them. Um, but it was a very exclusionary feeling. And, and I remember, you know, my mother spending a lot of time trying to help me with my homework that my brothers didn't need help with.
Mm-hmm.
And at, there was so often, and I didn't, I didn't wish for death, but I did feel anger at God and the universe for um, there was a joke that we had as kids that when God said brains, I thought he said trains, and I went and took the train and missed the brain.
Oh. Mm.
And that's how I felt. I felt that I'm here by accident, and it was a cruel
Mm-hmm.
joke.
Wow. And that's a lot of a load for a kid to carry. That's a
Yeah,
lot in those very, very formative years, especially since you went to the school for about 3 or 4 years. So, about from the ages of 8 until 12, those are crucial and critical years for you. When did
yeah.
the shift happen inside of you, Yossi, where you began to navigate through those feelings of not being welcomed or excluded, or just some of those feelings that can affect self esteem in a negative way? When did you begin to see a shift in that where you started to feel better about yourself and your situation? Did that change happen in junior high or high school?
It happened when I was about 40.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, so I had two experiences, three experiences that kind of like showed me what things could be,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have the tools or the awareness to know how to process them in a healing way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my dad was a rabbi, and he grew up in South Africa, and so after the divorce, he got remarried and he went to South Africa to be a rabbi. And when I was 12, I went there for the year.
Oh.
And as I mentioned that, um, you know, in my neighborhood, I had no friends. So this experience of going to a place, there was no backstory, nobody knew me,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids that were around were so welcoming and so friendly. It was the first time that I could remember of being welcomed, of having friends.
Mm-hmm.
That memory has always been a significant memory for me. Um, then, I went back to Denver and I went through school. And Alethea, I think I mentioned this to you, but I never passed a class
Hmm.
all the way through high school. Like I saw that I was failing, but the school system just like kind of moved me through. I don't think
Yeah.
maybe it was negligence. I just kind of felt like no one knew what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with me. And so
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just moved me through. Uh, so I finished high school in a
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
And as a post high school experience, um, it is, let's say, relatively common in the Jewish religious world for kids to go to Israel for the first year after high school as
I
a
didn't know
gap
that.
year
Oh,
of
I didn't know that. Wow.
yeah, of going to like a seminary, to a full-time learning experience.
Uh,
And so I did that. And again, I met a group of people who didn't know me beforehand. And again, found a really tight group of friends who are still my friends till today.
mm,
And so again, that was like the second time where I all of a sudden had this experience of acceptance.
hmm.
So when I returned from South Africa and I went back to school, went back to the exact same situation, right? Where back in Denver, back with the same people, back to the exclusion. Um, the only difference was we were older and it was harsher, and there was more
Mm,
awareness of the exclusion and the emotional jibes that were happening.
yeah.
Um, and so that was the second significant event. Uh, the third significant event was my this group of friends. I had never had plans to go to university or college because I was stupid and there was no way. And members of my family had convinced me that I would best be served by doing something with my hands, being a mechanic or a plumber or something,
Mm.
that I didn't have to learn
Trade,
a
so to
trade.
speak. Yeah. Hmm.
And so I had I had been learning how to repair cars since the age of 15 and stuff. And that's what I thought I was going to do. But this group of friends, they said, no, 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 you got to go to college. And they literally like walked me through taking my SATs and helped me get accepted to City College in New York.
Hmm.
And because I had no idea what to study, I started off with psychology, thinking that that was kind of like what a lot of people in my family were therapists. And so I'm like, okay, that's the thing to go into. I had no idea. I had no plan.
Hmm.
And I remember in my first semester, I started getting passing grades, like B's. And I'm like,
Wow.
what, what's going on? Like,
It shocked you.
yeah, how
Yeah.
is that possible?
Hmm.
But I never had confidence that I would do well, even though in the end I did graduate. I graduated with honors.
Wow.
Um, but at no point, even till today, when I say not resolved, do I ever walk in with the assumption that I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to do well. It's just not a thought that I ever have. And I am definitely more pessimistic than optimistic by outlook.
Hmm.
Uh, I ended up not becoming a psychologist or anything. In my last years of university, I switched into technology, into computers, which I found very um, just easy to understand and connect to.
Hmm.
And so it being in technology was a great match. It felt good. I did well. Um, but I again never assumed that I would do well. And I'm pretty much always surprised when I figure something out.
Mm.
Like that's not my default that I will. Like I remember coaching somebody earlier yesterday or yesterday who said to me, I know that I'll always get it done. I know I'll always figure it out. And I'm like, I'm like, great. But in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, I have never had that experience.
Hmm. Mm. And thank you for going that in depth with it because on paper or on the surface. That's why I love people's stories. We never really know what it has cost a person to be who they are today and to get where they are today. Because on paper and with your level of achievement, some would make the assumption, oh, he just skated through school or he's always done well. And that's not necessarily the case. And even when it comes to this leadership journey, you had shared with me you work for a major corporation, and you left in 2020. And I don't know all of the ins and outs, but the reason why I ask those specific questions going back from your early childhood, and thank you for sharing that with us, is the fact that you being in this role now of coaching, of showing people the ropes to leadership, you had all of these situations that I can see have contributed and built and led to where you are now. But some people say leaders are born, others say no, leaders are made. Yossi, take us on your journey, and how in the world would you pivot and transform your life from this tech world industry into this world of leadership? It's obvious, Yussi, hear the sarcasm. It's obvious that you were always destined and wanted to be a leadership coach.
Absolutely. Destined and always. Uh, no, I never even thought about it at all. Matter of fact, I think that the first time I even heard about what coaching is as a job, other than as a sports
Uh-huh. Yeah.
coach, was in 2010.
Okay.
So in I was in I was my primary role was IT until about 2002, and then I moved into an engineering role. And in a few years into that role, I started to get feedback that my people skills were subpar.
Mm,
And it really kind of struck me, not like I thought I would do well, but I had been studying. Like it was something I wanted to attain a leadership role. And so I had taken some leadership workshops. I'd read a couple of books. And the ideas of being a good listener, I thought I was a great listener. I thought I was very empathetic. I thought I was um, patient. I thought I understood people. And I started getting feedback that none of that was true.
mm,
And and then I'm like stuck, because that was never a challenge I had in technology. I could watch somebody do something, I could read about it, and I could mimic it, and often I could just tinker around and figure it out. Um, and so the people thing really, really baffled me. And I think I mentioned to you that in addition to being retarded, which I don't think I am really, but that label, I also have, for all of my memory of life, been dealing with different autoimmune issues,
mm-hmm,
such as psoriasis, etc. And my wife had convinced me in about 2001, when the autoimmune started building, arthritis, thyroid disease, etc., that I should seek out alternative medicine, because Western medicine just didn't have anything to address it other than trying to deal with the symptoms. And so as I was that gave me access to a whole other world that I had never accessed before. And so when I started having this challenge with people, um, one of my colleagues in that space said, "Why don't you take this workshop on emotional wellness?"
mm,
And I'm like, "Sure." Like at that point, I was all into learning anything that I could. And I remember it was a 3-day intensive experience. And I remember the first day, the first half of the day, there's this person who's teaching about self-awareness and how you can deepen your awareness. And then in the second half of the day, we would pair up with other people who went to this workshop, and we'd have these set of questions to kind of ask each other. And I'm noticing that people are starting to cry and be emotional around me. And I'm like, this is weird. What's going on? Like none of these questions are bringing up emotion for me. And
Oh,
it was only at the end of the day, Alethea, that hearing people talk, that I realized I was the odd one by not feeling.
oh, interesting. That's
And
interesting.
and that really was like a light bulb moment for me. Wait a second. Maybe this is my problem. Maybe this is the root of my problem, that I'm not feeling or accessing feeling or something, that is why I'm not understanding how to translate these behaviors, these actions of listening, patience, empathy into practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of was, I don't know, enough leverage for me to go all in on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent the next 5 years using all my vacation to learn about
Mm-hmm.
emotional wellness. And then it bridged into behavioral neuroscience, also a number of other naturopathic and what they would call Eastern medicine practices. I just started gobbling them up and learning them, and my life changed dramatically.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think was the spark that caused you to say, instead of retreating from what the feedback was people were giving you, you decided to embrace it? And I ask that because sometimes a person can say, you're really not a people person, or you don't really interact well with people. And someone could say, oh, okay, and just go on about their business. But you, on the other hand, didn't want to remain in that space. What do you think sparked that in you?
So my experience of growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and as you mentioned, formative, and so still not fully resolved,
Mm-hmm.
was every day was painful.
Mm-hmm.
Every day was waking up to feeling, why am I still here?
Mm-hmm.
Why did God do this to me?
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite of that also remained true, which is the desperation to find a way out of that daily experience. So I mentioned to you that I don't natively assume that I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to get it right, or I'm going to know it.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And therefore, whenever I get feedback, I never assume that the other person is wrong. I always assume they're right.
Mm-hmm.
That of course I don't know how to do it. And therefore I have no real um, rejection of feedback. Now, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that it doesn't hurt. Like when I started getting feedback that I wasn't good with the people thing, it hurt, it stung, but it wasn't, it was more of a validation that of course I suck versus a a disruption of my self-image. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started recognizing that there's doorways to change my experience that might be able to help me stop feeling pain every day, I would always leap at those.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of, here is something that I don't understand about emotion, was very appealing, even though in the moment I didn't realize that that was the appeal.
Hmm.
Um, and it was tremendous. I remember reflecting to my wife at the end of the first year of the training that I couldn't remember the last time I was depressed that year.
Oh, wow.
It had been
Wow.
such a year of discovery
Hmm.
that I didn't even recognize that I was on a high from that constant self-discovery. And the 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 part that was a little troubling or challenging was, change is change,
Hmm.
and there's goodness in change, and then there's, whatever, there's another side to that. Um, as I started becoming more self-aware, I started becoming nicer,
Oh.
but I didn't realize I wasn't nice to begin with.
Hmm.
But then I realized that I had been a jerk to my wife and my kids, um, not intentionally, but still not excusably. And while my wife was very aware of what I was going through, she was very supportive. My children thought that, like, I had been taken over by aliens.
Invasion of the body snatchers. Yeah.
And they were like, they didn't really know what to do with
Uh-huh.
weirdo dad,
Yeah.
initially. So
Hmm.
it
Wow.
was an interesting experience.
That speaks volumes. And just listening to you, and we didn't talk about this prior, and I don't want to go off in the deep end, but I'm not a doctor, of course, but I'm just talking about with my experience in knowing certain aspects. But to me, although they labeled you as intellectually disabled, it almost sounds like a form of neurodivergency in a sense, which is really a superpower in a lot of ways. Just the way that you're describing it, I'm sitting here like, man, I think Yussie may be neurodivergent because with that tech background, with just your response to the feedback, just with some of your interactions, that's what it sounds like to me. And it's really a superpower in a lot of different ways. And so, we could go on and on and on about this, and we don't have much time left. And so it begs the question to me is how has this journey of self-discovery while also navigating autoimmune conditions and alternative healing of that, which is also a journey and a process, how has that enhanced your ability to lead others as a leadership coach?
So thank you for the question.
Hmm.
What I am discovering, mostly based on feedback from people who I'm coaching, as they reflect what is different about the way I coach them than they've received in other coaching or other leadership development, is I make no assumptions about the baseline of humanity, how our brain works, how our emotions work. And to me, it all comes down to the things that I learned in the emotional wellness therapy and in the behavioral neuroscience of how our systems work. Now, if we think about it like a computer, so there's the computer and then there's the software that's running on it.
Hmm.
And so, but the computer can run many versions of software, many languages of software. You can put lots of different, coverings and screensavers and all of that.
Hmm.
But the are overall not in any way 100%. But there are certain things that seem to be true. For example, one of them is that we all live with subjective perception.
Hmm. That's a fact. Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So
I
for
agree.
me, as an engineer, all of these things translate very quickly from an idea to practicality.
Hmm.
And that's what I do with all of my clients, which is if subjective perception is true, okay, then do you think that the way we hear each other is the same or also different,
That can also be different. Uh-huh.
right? So
Yes.
Now just think about our general conversation style, which is
Mhm.
I'm talking and you're talking. But at what point have we validated with each other that what I'm saying you're hearing and what you're saying I'm hearing?
Throughout our conversation, even if through body language.
So
Yeah,
we're operating on a bit of soft assumption,
exactly.
okay?
I understand.
When we're in the work world and we are relying on other people to deliver, to execute in the way that we understand, and we start to find that what we get back isn't what we expected, and we start to find that that happens at least 20, 30, 40, 50% of the time, it becomes very disruptive to our work. If we want to fix that, there's actually some pretty simple ways to do it. The hard part is not learning what to do. The hard part is putting it into action.
Mm,
And what I'm understanding more and more about myself is all of these trials and tribulations have taught me how to do that work and how to share what it takes to do that work with others. So it's not like I'm bringing unheard of ideas to anybody.
hmm
What I am bringing is practiced, tried and true ways of enduring and persisting in growth.
mm. Enduring, persisting, and growth. I like that. Yeah. Enduring, persisting, and growth. How do you continue to persist in your daily life as you continue to transform even more and grow and evolve into more versions of yourself?
So in the beginning, when I say the beginning, when I started to really work through all of the childhood buildup,
hmm
and this idea first appeared about being a light in the darkness, my focus was making sure that I felt like I had my candle lit every day.
hmm
Over the last few years, there has been a great gift that life has brought, which is more candles, you and other
hmm
people that I've met. And what's slowly been happening over the last year is I've realized that I have a new dream. And my dream is not just to be a light in the darkness, but my dream is to light other candles and help other candles shine brighter too.
Mm,
And that's what gets me up every day is the belief that I think I can do that.
yes.
I want to believe that I can do that.
Mm,
And what I imagine is more lights, less darkness.
hmm More light, less darkness. What a wonderful mantra to have. And you are living that example. And if someone is more curious about the work you do, Yossi, what's the best way that they can connect with you?
The best way currently, Alethea, is on my LinkedIn.
Okay.
Um, I went and I bought a domain name with my name, but I
Uh-huh.
haven't had a chance to go. I'm not a web developer. I haven't gotten a chance to build that out.
Uh-huh.
So LinkedIn is right now the place, the best place. And there's even a booking link there. Anyone can book time with me. So
Perfect. And I'll have that in the show notes. And I understand about the website thing because I have updated my website so many times because I'm constantly shifting and evolving and growing. So even now, I have a website. It's active, but I'm not impressed with it myself. So
yeah,
I'm going through
right.
an update very soon with that as well by the end of the year. As we come to a close, Yossi, your journey and your transformation of the power within yourself, and also just so many people along the way, despite the challenging times, there were people that were candles in the darkness for you that have led you to be who you are today, and how you continue to still maneuver through life day by day. As a closing question, Yossi, it would be this. When you reflect back on that 8-year-old boy and now this 50-something-year-old man, what are you most, and I use this word in a positive sense, not negative, but what are you most proud of in terms of who you have become today when you look back on where you were at 8 until now? What brings you, maybe not even pride, but what brings you the most joy about your journey?
That I'm still here.
Mm, yeah.
I remember when I first learned about how a butterfly becomes a butterfly,
Hmm.
so caterpillar stops, becomes a cocoon, butterfly morphosizes, and then the butterfly spends the majority of its life fighting its way out of the cocoon.
Hmm.
And most butterflies, I'm told, live for a very short period of time after they're freed from the cocoon. And one of their main tasks is to lay eggs for the next cycle. If somebody were to come along and try to help the butterfly escape the cocoon earlier, the butterfly actually dies. The only way the butterfly learns to fly is that the experience of breaking out of the cocoon strengthens its wings so that
Hmm.
it can take flight. If we were to help it, it would not gain the strength it needs to fly. And I'm not a butterfly. Yet, I do feel that my journey has been one of strengthening rather than being trapped. And that has taken a while to see and to feel. And so my answer is that I'm still here
Yes.
and I'm
And
still
yeah.
learning to fly.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps us inspire even more listeners. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use a little power in their transformation. Until next time, keep bouncing back, keep rising, and be good to yourself and to others.